it's sort of like a full body sensory type of learning because you're seeing things and you're hearing things and you get to touch things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also are feeling it emotionally, like having some kind of like emotional connection with it, which like you can't always get that from reading a book.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
So today we're answering the question, what exactly is worldschooling and how does it differ from traditional schooling?
So Astrid, how would you define worldschooling?
Oh, this is a good question. So I like to take a pretty inclusive and broad definition of worldschooling. And I would say that it is essentially using the world or our travels as opportunities for learning.
Yeah, I think I would, very similar, pretty simple, just combining homeschooling with travel is kind of how I would see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the way that it differs from, traditional schooling in one way is that, worldschooling tends to be pretty flexible. In my mind, or how we've done it and how we've seen other families do it is, using the travel experiences that we have and sort of learning from that and incorporating that into, the learning experience for the kids.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably good to step back back a little bit and just define worldschooling is a variation of homeschooling, right? It's a variation of, well, for the most part, and I know there's variations we can talk about there, but it's I think especially during the pandemic and before, when we started worldschooling, it was an alternate lifestyle that families were taking, whether it's a gap year or multi-year or something along those lines, where they decided to take their kids, if they were already homeschooling, just take their kids traveling, or if they weren't homeschooling like us, we were in traditional school, taking the kids out of school, working remote somehow and doing that. So in the general logistical definition, I think that was it, that we took initially. Now I think we have a kind of more broad definition of that. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know though. I feel like I've always had a pretty broad definition, just because even if you're in traditional school, it doesn't mean that you can't world school as well. Just because you can still incorporate learning into your travel experiences on school holidays or whatever. But maybe you can define it as long-term or full-time world schooling versus short-term world schooling. But the philosophy is still the same of, whatever you're doing through your travels, you're finding opportunities to learn more about it, dive deeper into the cultures that you're experiencing, or supplement a particular travel experience with books or movies or things that will make you engage more with the experience.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost like a more intentional way to travel with your kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just taking travel with your kids one level deeper.
Yeah.
And trying to be more intentional about what you're actually absorbing or consuming.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I think is important.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's the crux of it. I guess maybe we can talk about maybe some of the differences then. I mean, even as we're saying that world schooling is not exclusive to, world schooling and traditional schooling are not exclusive of each other. There are differences in the approach. And maybe we can talk a little bit about what you've observed or how we've done it.
Yeah, and I think it's changed over the years too, right? When we started world schooling, there was already a world schooling community before us. Mm-hmm. And I think that shifted even by the time we started doing it. And that's now shifted even again. So I think the landscape of that's changed a bit. But so you're talking about just the variations on how different families world school?
Well, yeah. And also when you think about traditional school, you focus on there's a set curriculum.
Yeah.
There's, classes that you do. There's a physical place that you go to. Whereas, with world schooling, in some cases, you don't always have a set curriculum just because, travel can be unpredictable at times. So flexibility is built into that a lot more.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of that too is there's a large number of unschoolers that are world schooling. And so the breaking away from traditional curriculum, I think, is a big part of world schooling. But even at that, I think it's just tons of variety. I mean, there are people who are in traditional schools that will take just the summer to world school, right? We have friends that do that, and and we're kind of in that same boat now, where we have traditional school during the year, and then in the summer we go and do world schooling. So I think in general, world schooling tends to lend itself more towards kid-directed education. And whether that's unschooling or similar philosophies to say Montessori or Reggio Emilia or something like that, that seems to be where world schooling is more. And we do it too. Our kids are very involved in the process of where we're going to go, what are we going to learn, what activities are we going to do. They're very much involved in that. But having said that, it doesn't feel like education, right? It doesn't feel like it's a curriculum necessarily.
No, because it's so integrated into just our activities, you forget that when you're walking through a museum, you're learning, or you're walking through the Colosseum in Rome, you are physically learning about Roman history. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what I like the best about world schooling is you're doing these experiences that it's sort of like a full body sensory type of learning, because you're seeing things and you're hearing things and you get to touch things. And then you also are feeling it emotionally, having some kind of emotional connection with it, which you can't always get that from reading a book or, studying something out of a textbook.
So I think we've talked a lot about how it differs from education, different types of education. But I think maybe some of the listeners would be well, how's that different than just when we go on vacation?
Yeah, that's true.
And we experience that. So how would you define the difference of world schooling versus just kind of vacation travel?
Oh, in my mind, it's about the mindset, right? When you're going on vacation, your mindset is about consumption. Because you're well, I just want to, check off all the sites on my bucket list, or I want to enjoy just relaxing on the beach and things like that. So you're not there's not as much engagement because your focus isn't on that. Your perspective, your mindset isn't on that. It's more about just this is a break from reality. Whereas I think for if you have a world schooling mindset, it's, this is an opportunity to connect with this place that we're visiting. It's an opportunity to learn more about this new place. So, I mean, you can travel, you can go on vacation and world school too. I guess
we do that a lot.
That's what I'm trying to say. But there is a difference between a vacation mentality versus a world schooling mentality.
And we vacation while we're world schooling sometimes.
Yes, that's true.
We've gone on vacations while we world school.
Yeah. what would you say?
Yeah,
is the difference?
That's fascinating. You said breaking away from reality is kind of definition of vacation, and then world schooling is almost like shifting reality. The one thing I was going to point out is one thing we like to do. A lot of world schoolers like to do is like you're really like you're trying to live in that area, and that can be for a week, it can be for a month, it can be for 3 months, it can be for multiple years, right? You're really trying to experience what it is to live in that area. So even if we go to say like a beach town or something that's traditionally kind of a vacation spot, we usually stay in an apartment of some sort. We cook a lot. We go to the grocery store. We go to parks. We meet up with people. It's as if we were living there. And I think to me, that's one of the key differences with world schooling versus vacation is that, we enjoy going to a hotel too and just hanging out and swimming in the pool and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like when we really want to go world school, like during the summer and we're gone for weeks at a time, it's because we want to experience what it is if we were living in that area, right? Like how do other people, like just how is this neighborhood? How is this neighborhood? How is this town? So that's to me, I think how I would define that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for listeners who are new to us, we spent 4 years traveling around the world full time, and we did like slow travel, and we did do that type of world schooling that Clint is describing, where we found a spot and we just lived there for a month or so or more, and it's a different. It's like a different experience than if you were just staying at a hotel or just staying for a week at a time, because you start to build like routines and you start to like notice, how people do things, and you're trying to like, okay, I see that in this country or in this city, this is how, people buy their groceries. So then now we start doing that. So what I love about it is that then you develop these habits, and then these little habits, and then you take it with you to either the next place or you go when you return back to your home. Yeah. So that's such a great, I don't know. That's why I think like travel can be so transformational because of those things. And that's like the real power of world schooling in my mind.
Yeah. I think, and not even just taking it back home, I think just taking it to other destinations. If you are doing if you're chaining destinations together, I think that's fascinating. The other thing I like is that the kids will take, the kids start recognizing patterns in all the different cultures, which I think builds a sense of empathy. It builds a sense of like union among all people. Yeah. That like, it doesn't matter if it's across the world or in a region you've never been to before. It just seems completely foreign to you. When you're actually there, I mean, we were like Vietnam, for example, like we were in Vietnam, couldn't speak the language at all. And it was a much different culture than we're used to. Yeah. But after being there for 3 months, we're like, all the same things. We go to the mall, people go to the mall, they go to the movies, they eat, like there's all, they go to the grocery store. It's all very similar, and the kids pick up on that too, which is really
so there's like a multicultural element to world schooling that you don't always find in like traditional school, or even sometimes with like homeschooling, especially if you're like stationary in one place.
And then on the vacation side, it's multicultural in that tendency is for vacations to stay in like inclusive resorts or things like that, and you don't actually really get to see much of the actual residential culture. Yeah. So it's different. What are some varieties of world schooling? Because I think there is pretty varied at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you could be like us, where I feel like we tried a bunch of different things. There's, you could just be so, how do you say this? Like inclusive to your own family and just, world school on your own, or you could meet up with another family and stay in a spot together in one place. Or there are a lot of meetups and world schooling hubs these days that you can get in touch with. In fact, I list a few of them on my website under my article about world schooling resources. But there's like communities that have been there for a while, and there are like temporary pop-up hubs. There are, tours that happen, or like meetups that happen too. So it's that I've seen such a growth in, and it's been nice because I think a lot of people do want that sense of community while they're traveling.
And what's cool is that, like, for me, because I've been following digital nomad world for a while. Yeah. And what's really cool is like a lot of the digital nomads that kind of really defined that era. A lot of them now are older. A lot of them have families. So some of them call it digital nomads with families or digital nomadic families. But like world schooling digital nomadic families is basically the same thing. Yeah. And so it's like this kind of cool time right now where there's just so much open. And because of the pandemic too, like a lot of governments are open towards remote work. There's now a lot of like digital nomad visas or different visas that are available. So it's a very interesting time right now to do it, if you can do it. Yeah.
So for if you're curious about learning about what world schooling is in depth, I do have an article on my website that's called "What is World Schooling?" And then another article that specifically talks about like how to become a world schooling family. I kind of want to end this episode with like your take. What would be like the advice for you in terms of somebody that is new to world schooling and wanting to like start it or understand it more?
Yeah, I would say start by going to thewanderingdaughter.com and reading some of the articles for sure. There's also plenty of Facebook groups. Facebook is just, I think, the primary social media where everyone is. But you can do search for groups, world schooling in any area that you want in the world. And there's likely a group for it. So lots of people are there to talk to. My best advice is like, just talk to somebody that was the catalyst for us. Yeah. Was talking to other world schoolers. And then also just start small. Like maybe just go away for a week during like spring. If your kids are in traditional school, go away for a week on spring break, and don't do your traditional vacation that you've done in the past. Try to like get an apartment in a residential area or something. Yeah. What about you?
I think for me, it is, to kind of go back to this idea that world schooling and traditional schooling don't have to be like one or the other, that it can be both, is like start adopting a world schooling mind frame even at home. Mm-hmm. So like use your home experience as like, use the place that you live in as opportunities for learning more about it. Approach it like you're a traveler in that destination.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover?
Nope, that's it.
All right, great.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of World Schooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into world schooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any world schooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!